残酷な天使のように少年よ神話になれ。
Hello and welcome to day 9 of DecembEvangelion. I'm Tom.
I'm Joe.
We've arrived at the rebuilds.
We've arrived at the rebuilds where I only have to watch like 1 or 2 movies per session.
Yes, rather than several hours of television.
6 episodes that I have to watch it while getting my car repaired.
Yeah, that certainly was an experience. Anyway, we're going to be talking today about Evangelion 1.0 or 1.11 as it's sometimes also called in terms of physical releases. This was released on September the 1st, 2007 and is the first of the 4 rebuild films. So we're back where we started with Shinji coming to Tokyo and there are some angels and all is slowly revealed. So yeah, the rebuild trilogy is, as the name may suggest, essentially it forms 2 parts, doesn't it? I think it's fair to say.
There are 4 films.
Yeah, there's 4 films of which there are 2 films and then another 2 films.
Duology.
Because obviously
the duology.
Yeah, the duology. So you got basically I think it's fair to say that 1.11 is probably the episode the film we are going to talk about least, mostly because we've already talked about it.
Yeah, it's there's some things to talk about because they were planning to just like upscale the whole dang thing and just have another recap, but they did, to Anno's credit, he did step up his game and make it a movie. It was kind of a movie he wanted to make, just because it feels like it is all those times. It's a Godzilla film, essentially. Yeah, especially the times when it's building up and there's the super weapon to stop this villain or Godzilla himself. Yeah. And they have to use all the power of Japan, and there are just these long shots of a whole bunch of equipment being hooked up and, planes and whatever else.
And Anno's Otaku goes, look at the tank go, look at the, there's like, obviously, the Oshi Anno sort of military gear is really cool, war is really bad sort of dichotomy. So I think we sort of basically need to talk a little bit about, before we go into the sort of the background and obviously the film itself. Remember when we talked about Gainax sort of having sort of like doing sort of shady stuff a few episodes back? Yeah, that is about to come to fruition. If we turn our attention to Gainax in circa 1997, things are going very badly indeed. Yeah, so how do we explain this? How do we explain this politely without basically going, Gainax committed massive tax fraud?
I think you just said it.
Gainax committed massive.
We don't have to be nice.
Yeah, particularly considering what Gainax is. So essentially, basically, as we said back at the beginning, there are rumours. I don't think this is something you're ever going to get a straight answer on, because it's sort of circumstantial evidence, and a lot of it is like, after the fact, we never expected it to be a success, nudge nudge, wink wink, look how well we did. There are sort of suggestions that putting a manic depressive in charge of a series where your studio, the same manic depressive who has basically burnt himself out in doing the series that lost you a phenomenal amount of money, might have been a little bit of a tax scheme. in the style of Mel Brooks as the producers, wherein by oh dear, we're out of money, we can't repay our debtors, we're going to Chapter 11 the company and pop up somewhere else, Unfortunately, much like Mel Brooks as the producers, the Neon Genesis Evangelion is a phenomenal success. Unlike Mel Brooks as the producers, Gainax basically panic, and they suddenly go, we've now got 1.6 billion yen that we weren't supposed to have, that we wouldn't expect having. There's half a billion yen of corporate taxes on that. Oh, fuck. is basically their response. On top of this, Gainax is doing something really, in hindsight, really stupid. It's like, basically, they're paying subsidiary, closely related companies, so basically companies that are Gainax or Gainax affiliates or run by Gainax, obviously, and they go, here is your money for making, your work on Evangelion episode blah blah blah, or here is your residuals for helping, pitching in and helping us. We're part of the same company. By the way, we're now going to take 90% of that money back and put it in safe deposit. I mean, they were getting to the point where they were physically taking, obviously paying these companies money, obviously via, your normal thing, and then going, yeah, can we have 90% of it back as cash? And we're storing it under the bed. We are in just unprecedented silly territory, I think, with this.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think by this... So, basically, we need to obviously come back and... So, Hideaki Anno, it basically makes another series, which I think we mentioned at the start, called His and Her Circumstances. This also goes south, because the mangaka for His and Her Circumstances really doesn't like the direction Anno's taking this. He essentially then directs most of the second half of the series under a pseudonym by and obviously assistant director. He then goes off and makes a couple of really nice art house sort of experimental films, one of which is the only live action film ever distributed by Studio Ghibli. And basically he then goes, and then he sort of comes back and he goes, right, okay, I've been trying, obviously Anno has obviously got a lot better during this period. I don't think particularly in the sort of the periods between the two Evangelion projects, Anno's mental health very much comes up. He is essentially going, I am Hideaki Anno, I'm a Neo Genesis Evangelion, I can now do ostensibly what I like, thank you very much. Mm-hmm. So Anno basically comes back and he goes, right, in 2000 he goes, okay, yeah, Evangelion is now, by 2000, it's 5 years in the past. We have as we've said in other episodes about other things, there is the sort of 5-year life cycle, and if a series is still around after 5 years, then you are dealing with something very big. And Anno sort of goes, I want to make Evangelion the Gundam of the 90s, at a point where, obviously Gundam still was very much around in the 90s and continues to this day. But Anno sort of basically wants to make Evangelion a franchise. He wants to basically, take this. And obviously a lot of this goes into works. We haven't got time, we haven't got the budget, we haven't got really the sort of the patience to do, where you sort of get even the mangers of the Shinji Ikari Raising Project and other really strange things Evangelion at School, which we'll briefly touch on next episode. Anno basically goes, cool, I want to I want to do something Evangelion again. And it sort of basically starts as we're just literally touching up the series, which kind of runs into a very quick problem, which is there's bits of Evangelion missing, and so they have to go and find the original storyboards and having to do a lot of legwork that's sort of basically a flat upscaling, as you said, Joe, of the original series is not really gonna cut it, I think.
Mm-hmm. Because we've already had a bunch of recaps.
2 of them, in fact. So yeah, this is very much It's very easy to go, what would this have been like? Would this have basically been hey, we put 16mm footage into upscaled into 35mm? What would have it looked like? Would they have gone back, and if the cells had been more complete, would they just gone back and rescanned it? It's a moot point, because I think we got something far better. This is kind of then leads back to the problem with Gainax. So Gainax by this point are... I think it's unfair to say that Gainax at this point are struggling, but realistically they've only got, like, I would say, 2 of their best series left to go. Considering like all the majority of the work they did in the 90s, the only 2 series I would say that are particularly interesting, like post so Anno leaves. I think Anno leaves. He basically takes a lot of the Gainax talent with him. He starts up a company called Kara, and really sort of Gainax sort of ends up in this sort of decade-long sort of death spiral, I think, to be fair, which sort of comes to a head, I think, in sort of 2013, 2014, which we'll obviously get to when we come back to talk about 3.0, which I think is obviously more fits under that episode. The point is that Anno is Anno has turned his back on Gainax, and things will only get worse going forward. For Gainax.
I should say at this point, like, Gainax has already tried to take as much money out of Evangelion as possible, because they have everything. They have like dating simulators. They have manga based on like Shinji raising sims.
Yeah.
All of this other stuff.
It gets to a point where I think it's like. And I feel it's like there is a sense to Gainax of going, and obviously that will become this the amount of money that they are getting out of it will again come back to bite them on the arse, because Anno isn't getting some of that money. Actually, Anno isn't getting a lot of the money. Yeah, this is the sort of thing. This is, even if Anno hadn't turned Evangelion into a franchise, the amount of Evangelion stuff in like the collective ecosystem of like fandom at this point is like breathtaking. Like, it gets sillier as the rebuilds go along, but it is like, there is a YouTube video I will link below where basically you can survive on Evangelion merchandise. You can fill your house with Evangelion merchandise, and I hesitate to sort of basically daub Anno as being so crass as to go, oh, well, if we do a new thing, we can make some new merchandise. And, that will be, obviously, because Studio Kara, obviously Anno owned the rights, but obviously I think it's a very complicated thing. I'm not a lawyer, and we're not getting into complex copyright law, but, it's sort of, there is a point at which, there is so much Evangelion stuff, and then it's like, the whole thing is, now we would like to make a new Evangelion, for even more merchandise. I feel Anno has at least one eye on in at least the first rebuild, because there is a ton of merchandise from.
Mm-hmm. And also the response to it was, oh, we're making this again, and we are making exactly this again, just to exist and make more money and all of this stuff.
Yeah, it's easy to regard at least like the bare bones version, the original version of the rebuild films, as like a cynical cash grab. It's like, oh, we're gonna do, as you tend to get nowadays with anime things, you go, oh, here's the recap film. Get it out in the cinemas. It's basically got 2 minutes of animation, but it's got one of your favourite characters in it. You have to go and see this because you want to see this extra 2 minutes of animation. And it's sort of, the same thing that Death and Rebirth did to an extent, I feel. And sort of Anno starts to go, this can be something a little bit more, I think. Like, there is very much midway through production of 1.0, it's like we need to just remake the thing. I think is basically going to be is sort of Anno's main like impetus at this point. It's like, you know, basically we remake, and it's sort of in remaking it that I feel it does definitely reframe like certain elements. So we need to sort of like briefly talk about the plot of this, I think.
You know, how far do we have to go on that? Just because
we've okay, how long have we got? Let me see if I can do this in under 2 minutes. Okay, are we ready?
Go.
Shinji is a young boy whose father is distant and mother is missing, presumed ? He arrives in the city of Tokyo 3, which is the last bastion against the mysterious and dangerous angels. They arrive. So essentially, we basically have a pitch battle between the fourth angel, because apparently it's now not the third angel. We'll see the third angel in the next film. Shinji essentially is forced to get into the robot, being blackmailed with a young girl who called Rei Ayanami. Shinji battles the angel, blacks out, wakes up back in seeing unfamiliar ceilings, is informed that a robot has gone berserk and won the day. Shinji moves in with Misato, a functioning alcoholic who has got her own reasons for her vendetta against the angels. Shinji has to face both the force of another angel and worse, teenage bullying. After which he makes friends with Toji and Kensuke. He then, a third angel, much upgraded from its original appearance, appears on the scene, fires a lot of laser beams. They fire the entire Japanese electricity board back, and they defeat it. Cut to the moon. Shinji, hello, here is your boyfriend. This is your boyfriend for 30. The series. This is Karen Nagase. Also, here's some mysterious things from Gendo, where they might be or may be following the Dead Sea Scrolls. Introducing Asuka in next film. Go.
All right, you got that with a little less than 20 seconds to go.
It's basically episode 1 to 6 again. Yeah.
And we should note, like, some of the angels have gotten a glow up, especially Ramiel.
Yeah, so I feel it's like we need the best way we can talk about 1.0 is going, here is where it tightens things, here is where it is different, here is where it improves. I think because this is going to be like this is possibly going to be the shortest episode, because this is a solid 4 out of 5 film. You know, it's like testing the water. It's going, is there still an audience for Evangelion? Does 3 things very quickly. Sets up the rest of the rebuild the rebuild quartet. I'm not using quartology or tetralogy Ridley because I don't, let's just call it. We're gonna call it quartet. I hate the other fucking terms for 4 things. It's a quartet. It's a quartet. So essentially, it does 3 things. 1, it goes, hey, do people still like this Evangelion thing? Answer, yes. It made a phenomenal. This did very well at the box. So I think it's very fair to say this did very well at the Japanese box office. Like it sold out. It went very, very well. It sort of it sold out. It was very successful. It was the highest grossing film of the weekend. The weekend it came out. Evangelion became. It basically went, hey, do you remember that Evangelion thing? Here it is again. It's going to be, we're going to do another one of these. This also was like the highest selling DVD in Japan for like most of 2007. Then got beaten by Michael Jackson's This Is It, which is a really strange combination there. It's, it basically is a solid 4 out of 5. So it does, as I said, it does 3 things. First off, it obviously goes, is Evangelion still popular? Yes. Is Evangelion, here is the first 6 episodes of Evangelion basically retold in a cohesive, a tightened, and a much visually improved thing. 3, here is enough nuggets of like oh, what's this, sort of to basically tide over the audience until the next film, in which things do start to change, you know, to differ from the path that that an audience expects it to, and also, by the way, also does a really good, you know, works really well as a piece of cinematic storytelling. You know, it's not just, this is for the fans. I mean, although 1.11 is probably the least of for the fans sort of film, while still being for the fans.
To a certain extent.
Yeah. So the biggest change is the focus of this, I think.
Okay. You know, just the size is the biggest thing.
The scale of this is big. It's like, you know, there is a certain sense to the original series of expanse and loneliness, and a lot of like that expanse in the rebuild, particularly in 1.11, is very much filled in. You know, Tokyo 3 in the original series is nigh desolate. You know, you have like these, you know, these iconic shots of Evangelion of like Shinji just walking down what should be a busy road on his own. 1.11 goes, hey, look, lots of people. It's, you know, it's a lived-in sense to the city, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of suggestion in the original series about how like big and mysterious and, you know, what they're doing. And, you know, they do the scenes where here's Tokyo 3, this is the city you're protecting, and all of this. But this one gets into like, you know, the geography and the size. Like, they still have the scene where Shinji gets to see the sunrise or sunset on Tokyo 3 and gets to see the city raise up and gets to see what he's protecting. Although God knows why anybody would fucking live there, but that's another thing for another time.
Property prices are good, Joe. Property prices are good.
But, yeah, there's a distinct sense of this is how they get around, and this is where Geofront is, this is where Tokyo 3 is, and this is how they get to where they're going and where they've been through, and it fills in a lot of that space where it was a lot of background art doing the work. Like, I remember one of the early Evangelion episodes where there's just background picture when they're on the first episode where they're like elevating down, and there's just this giant hand coming out, and it's like, oh, what's that? But, you know, other than that, there's not really a sense of space or, you know, where the room is. I mean, they do have, there was designs for Nerve. We're off the Netflix redub, so I don't have to call it Nerve.
Yeah. About that redub, as I said, we obviously commented this briefly in, like, obviously when we introduced each character. Certain people sound great in the Netflix. Like the problem is with the rebuilds is there are 2 dubs, and most of these dubs are with the same people. And the problem is most of these dubs are with the same people about sort of 10 years apart, and it's like, with certain characters, fine. You know, Misato sounds fine. Asuka sounds great because, you know, Asuka's, you know, because, you know, it's you know, certain Spike Spencer sounds not 14 anymore. And it's like, Spike, you sound like you're in your mid-30s, you are playing a 14-year-old. Don't really feel like this works anymore. It's like, you know, there are the majority of characters. Obviously, we'll get to 2.22, and my biggest problem with the dub next episode, or the redub, because obviously they redubbed it for Amazon, more in line with obviously Kara's script. Again, I feel eventually we're gonna get some sort of like, you know, version of the rebuilds that get voiced by the Netflix actors. I feel it's a matter of when rather than if. But, you know, as I said, the Netflix the Amazon 2021 dub it's fine. Fortunately, as I said, I think Joe owned the original Funimation DVD releases.
Yeah, I own the Blu-rays.
Yeah, I own 2 on DVD and 1 on Blu-ray, which will soon be 2 and 2. Yeah, it's fine. It's a solid, the dubbing itself is fine. It's the fact that when you compare it's less that Spike sort of sounds like old. It's more when you compare these 2 dubs and you go, this is essentially the same actor giving a slightly nuanced, slightly different performance for the same character, and we're meant to, obviously, it's nice to have a cohesive dub of it, absolutely, but it starts to go, yeah, this is like, considering Spike Spencer has been voicing Shinji for like 2.5 decades at this point. It starts to get into, Julie Craven and Marge Simpson, please stop sort of territory, I think, with certain voice actors in this dub. Some of them are fine.
I still don't know how she can do that, gravelly voice and not immediately just be.
Yeah, it's like, as I said, it is a solid dub, but I prefer the 2007 to the 2008 to 2009 version of the dub, because it's like there's an authenticity, and it's like, hey, we got the original dub cast back, isn't it great?
And I can tell you for our little skits, I believe we've I don't know how many have shown, but I did a bunch of skits as Gendo Akari at the Anime Nebrascon, and imitating John Swayze was probably the easiest, because he just has an old guy voice. The early voice acting is nasally, and then you get to the Netflix redub, which is very gravelly and really wore out my voice doing like 4 or 5 takes, but that's because I had a lot of outtakes for one very certain one.
Yeah,
you may or may not show.
You'll see them at the beginning of the episodes. If we'd like to thank Joe for just doing that. I may have cosplayed, I may have not. You may have to wait and watch the rest of these videos to see if I've done anything. It's a mystery. But if I've obviously cosplayed, then ignore this message. Absolutely. The sort of the biggest sort of so there are 3 real gloves. One is just the entire thing looks just so damn good. So the animation of this a lot of this is done in computer. Obviously, most of it it's done in 3D, and I think obviously a lot of the characters are obviously hand drawn. The mechas tend to be completely computer generated. Considering this is considering this film is 16 years old, and was in that period where anime was a little bit not quite sure how computer work will throw characters into computer generated environment. Oh god, my eyes, why does the truck look like that? That sort of that sort of era of anime.
And why does it run at 4 frames a second?
Why is the computer generated background in a completely different aspect ratio to the characters? And so that's we'll inevitably in our day-to-day thing come across something that's done that, and it's the early computer generated era of anime is interesting to say the least. This stands up. It really stands up. It's this is a 16-year-old film, and frankly it looks really fresh and really, really good.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing they did was they put the characters in the same environment. So if they did 3D CG, they put it in a mostly 3D CG environment. There are still some shots where you can tell they're doing a few shortcuts because it's a shot that they don't really need, but when they're fighting, everything fighting is basically the same element. And it doesn't feel like, okay, here's something going against a digipainted 2D thing.
Yeah, it's not that thing it's not that thing where you got in a lot of you know, let's just do something. You know, Pokemon the second movie, it's like, hey, here's the evil villain's base lair thing that and that's done completely in computer. And the moment it hits water, it's like, look, it's a water explosion done in hand drawn animation. Doesn't this look incongruous?
It's Studio Gonzo, pretty much everything.
Yeah. Obviously 1.11 does a few technical little tweaks and goes, we could just basically, now we have released this into the cinema, we can now go and tweak and make this even better and look even, that is basically the big difference between the point nils and the point numbers. They're basically, we made it look even better. It looks amazing. So the second real sort of big glow up is, as I said, the plot is very much torture. It's not like there is very little fat on this film, so to speak. I think it's fair to say. Okay.
Yeah. It's
it has a lean. I feel like, again, it sort of leans into Anno's sort of love of thrillers, because it is very much done in a but also obviously. Yeah, this is a Godzilla film. But it's plotted like a Godzilla film. It's here is a threat. Oh no, the threat is really bad. Here in the time-honored tradition, let us send in the military. Look, Joe, the military have done nothing. Send the giant robot in.
Why don't you send the Power Rangers or whoever else to begin?
Nah.
Why aren't the Power Rangers in their Megazord or whatever? Because it's small.
No, we got to fight.
I understand their rules, and they don't just do that.
Yeah.
But
escalation. No, but but it very much it sort of basically focuses the film on Rei and Shinji. It sort of very much does. Here is Shinji. Here is Rei. They sort of get to know each other better. Shinji obviously undergoes trials and tribulations. I mean, the way that Shinji works in this film is a lot more... As I said, I think we've discussed Shinji as a barometer of Anno's mood and sort of, how Hideaki Anno is feeling. And this Shinji is far more upbeat. There's absolutely, he is still scared of Gendo. He is still, has moments of doubt, but it's okay, there is, for example, the get in the robot scene is obviously still there, and obviously it's Shinji still acts like Shinji. Shinji is still, overcome by his fear of his father and this and that. But at the same time, a lot of his lower moods, lower sort of self-esteem, sort of seems to have been gently sort of smoothed out, I feel. I don't know if that comes across for you as well, Joe, or...
He's more resilient, certainly.
Yeah.
And some of it is because they have to cut down time, because there is that part where he runs away, and then he goes to the city, and then he goes all the way out in the country, but it doesn't wallow in it. It doesn't wallow Shinji's in the red light district, and there's nasty happening around him or something like that.
It's in a cardboard box, I think, at one point. It's I do like that. So that scene is it's less an anxiety and more there's a real sinisterness to that scene, because it basically reframes it as no matter how far you go, Shinji, there's military guys 10 paces behind. He
basically says, I'm ready to go back, and then suddenly this entire military lights up.
Yeah, and it's and also it sort of gives us the idea of the sense of the sense of destruction is massively amped up in this. It's you see entire sections of Tokyo 3 sort of recover from the damage, and you go out into the countryside outside of Tokyo 3, and it's these roads are out and destroyed, and it's probably going to be because of an Evangelion battle, and there is a sense of scale to this. I don't think even if the original series had the time and the time and even more budget than they had would have been able to do. I think this is something that being able to come back to it 12 years later and remake it wholesale really does allow Anno to sort of give us a bigger scope.
I think one of my biggest additions is how much they put the size of the humans within the size of what they are doing. Especially with Masato and Ritsuko, they're kind of the most interesting characters at this point. I mean, we don't have Asuka or any of the other characters who spice everything up. So they have to kind of do the job as, friends who don't really agree with each other, but don't really like each other. But they are the only two people who connect to each other in this, mammoth task. And they show this a few times, when they're going down with the little ski lift cards, or when they're at the bar that's in the geofront, and you can just see everything outside, and you can see Tokyo 3 in night mode, and you can just see them trying to exist within this massive ordeal that is on them, and them just trying to exist.
And I feel like the thing I really do like is Masato as a character in this is far more. I hesitate to say proactive, because I think she never feels to be proactive. She feels like she has her she feels like she has her shit more together. I mean, it's like she basically, so a lot of obviously I think one of the bigger cuts that obviously the rebuild films do is the mystery of what is in the basement. What is Nerve hiding from everybody, because it's Masato knows that Lilith is down in the basement, and uses it later to go, hey Shinji, there's this horrible thing down in the basement. If an angel gets to it, we're all fucked. There's very much there's a bit of a more of a toughness to Masato. She feels like she's far more resourceful. I'm not saying that again the original anime series version of her wasn't, but it's been taken up to the nth degree, and she's now very absolutely, she's still a functioning alcoholic, but she's a functioning alcoholic who is functioning.
And has more agency with what is going on, because, most of the time it feels like she is on the outside of what is happening. And this time it feels she is more, there are very many interpretations on this. I kind of take the interpretation that the different endings and various things of Evangelion are just choices in a visual novel or something like that. And it's obviously end of Evangelion is the extreme bad end, and then the the TV ending is essentially the ending you get if you make the generally good responses, but you don't get the super secret ending. And now we're breaking through eventually to the real ending or something like that. And
this does feel, there's elements of it where it definitely does feel like there are elements of this where it definitely feels like this is a new game plus sort of version of
oh, definitely. And one of the other interpretations is that it's just reincarnation, and they've learned a little more, they've done a little more, and obviously because it's far Eastern religion and stuff like that, that makes us a lot more sense for the makers, because they're trying this again, and getting a different response, and they keep trying this again, and obviously it went horribly wrong at one point, so they had to reset again. So there is that aspect to it.
The old try again, if ever fail better sort of methodology. The other sort of the other real things I like about this is the where things have been improved, outside of the plot is Malbor is now better. I feel it is a better told version. I mean, you said obviously when we talked about episodes 1 to 6 back towards the start of this podcast, you don't tend to watch it because just one point nil just does it better, and I feel like The other element that 1.0 does better is Rei.
Yeah, I mean,
well, like...
it does. It's just Rei is, until the final movie, is still just kind of passive character. I mean, she tries, but it's still Rei. I have always felt, until the last movie, is best used as existential terror object. And that is, how she is most remembered. Obviously, we have like all of the last 40 minutes of End of Evangelion.
Yeah, Hideaki Rei's coming. I mean, even when Rei is adorable, it's still like, this is adorable. This is like adorable in a sort of what I would call eldritch adorable, Frank.
Yeah,
it's
and like, there's always that identity questioning. Is she really making her own decisions? Is she just this blank clone of Shinji's mother, or is she just this tool of Gendo Ikari? And then you think about it, then you think about yourself, and then you get real uncomfortable with, what am I? And then obviously then she becomes a god, and then it's just oh shit.
and then you turn into Tango.
Yeah.
I mean, I like, I feel like 1.0 is where Rei sort of like vaguely clicked for me. It's like, I understand. I mean, I'll be upfront. Rei is probably my least favorite Evangelion character, but she is still a favorite. And it's sort of really quite sweet to see like Rei's at least this version of Rei's character arc in 1.1 and 2.22, and then it goes to shit, as it always does. We'll get to that.
And I can't discuss anything because stupid media companies are not delayed the shipping of your copy of the last movie.
Thanks, Anime Limited. Well done. One job or two jobs, and you still managed to. Anyway, So Rei's quite sweet in this. Fine, yeah. It's very much a Rei and Shinji getting to know each other and sort of like gaining confidence from each other sort of film, and it does fine at that. I still find Rei occasionally a little bit blank and a little bit like Shinji needs something to push against to do something, and Rei needs something to push, and it's like two very introverted, as we said with obviously, when we talked about episodes 1 to 3, two introverted people sort of gently bumping against each other doesn't make the most scintillating viewing at points. It's very cute.
As a severe introvert,
it's very cute, and it's quite endearing to watch Shinji and Rei sort of like go, hey, we can be introverted together, up thumb. But it is sort of like a little bit like, there are moments where I go, please just introduce her earlier, please. It's like, it's fine, it's a good movie. The one thing I do also really, one of the many other things I like about 1.11, Ramiel is just brilliant in this. It's like Ramiel, who is like the most really basic angel in like, which is like basically it's a cube, it shoots lasers and has a drill, has now become actual frightening palpable threat.
It has a voice, and it kind of has a character because it has that scream.
It's like, I'm scary, I'm going to shoot you with a massive fuck off laser, and you're going to need the entire electricity aboard of Japan to defeat me. Yay! So togetherness, well done, Japan. You defeated you collectively by turning yourself your power off. Have defeated one angel. All of you have done this. Well done. There's like, there is, Ramiel's great, and the design is probably one of the best improvements in the entire Rebuild series, I feel. And it's fun, and it's like, it's basically, it takes the original battle, which I thought was actually one of the best Angel versus Eva battles of the original series, and just pumps it up a little bit more, I feel.
Yeah, it's.
Well,
I mean, it especially uses the size of scale to just blow the crap out of.
Oh yeah,
whatever the original series was. Like,
it's like
it destroys
blow
hills.
Up an entire hillside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's 3 skyscrapers that will sink in and fall over, and there's just this real sense of, after the drilling and this is all going to take this much time or something like that, this thing will do it right fucking now.
Yeah, it's like, no, we'll go now. Oh god.
Well, I mean, it is the one with the drilling, but there is that sense that it is destructive enough to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. The other element I feel has been punched up massively for the original series, and it's one of the aspects I think that was originally great in the original series. The score on this just kicks ass. I'm sorry. It's like they basically went, Shiro Sagosi, have all of the money you could possibly want to make this the best score you can. Including recording the entire thing at Abbey Road Studios in London. It's like, yeah. It's I mean, Sagasu I think was always one of the best parts of the original series. It's like his score never sort of loses, while the rest of the series is sort of slowly falling apart in running out of time. Sagasu is just like, no, I'm just gonna make some really kick-ass music over here, and 1.11 just basically goes, now we're gonna give him a fucking orchestra and guitars and other cool stuff.
I think it really kicks in at 2.0 or 2.2 or whatever.
Yeah.
But the first one, like everything else, it just feels like a bulked up version of the original.
Yeah. Decisive battle. Dun, 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 dun. Look, we put drums. We put kettle drums. We put kettle drums and the machine that goes dung on it. The machine that goes dung. And obviously the other. So there is kind of one major addition to the rebuilds before we obviously before we go on to talk about episode 2.22. It is Utada Hikaru, non-binary icon.
And the beautiful boy.
Yeah, they bring basically, well, it's one piece of music for 3 of them, but they obviously they remix it and there's various things. I fucking love Utada Hikaru. Probably, she obviously at the same point is also doing the Kingdom Hearts soundtrack.
Yes. It's two of your favorite things, linked together. So you're. Yeah.
I'm happy. Beautiful World is a great song. We'll come back and talk about it more probably next episode, because we basically get 3 different remakes, and it is basically almost the theme for Evangelion. I mean, there's actually so basically we get this version,
the rebuild
that we get. It's basically the rebuild theme. Intriguingly enough, Utada Hikaru's favourite Evangelion character and the one she identifies with most is Asuka. So we'll show that. Yeah, there's there's nice remix. They do another song for obviously 3.32. We'll get to that at some point. Great little addition. Sort of basically, again, remember Utada Hikaru is one of the most famous pop stars in Japan. Massively popular. The 2 highest selling albums in Japanese rock history. It's a match made in heaven. It's hey, you're really popular. Yes, I am really popular. Let me come and help you with your massive rebuilding of your beloved anime series. Have we got anything else we want to mention before we move on to 2.22? Because this is I said, I think this is always going to be the episode where we go, it's very good. We've talked about this before.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's going to sound like it's the Hostel. It's fine, but it's okay. I remember when it came out, it got B's and B minuses, which seems fitting just because it looks incredibly good. And it has its moments, and it's certainly kicked up a notch. But at the end of the day, it is a retelling of a thing you have already seen.
Yeah, and it's like definitely. It very much definitely leans into you have seen this before. So I'm going to mention one thing before we do obviously move on to our next episode. What it does add in its that wasn't there before sort of moments is really great. Gendo's really up to something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Gendo. I feel like this is like the sort of obviously what I feel 3.3 the Evangelion series does very much is reframe this I feel as a more obviously you have humanity versus the angels, but it also reframes it very much as Gendo versus Shinji I feel. And sort of obviously Gendo has got his where everything is proceeding as per the Dark Dead Sea's rules, and Fuzu goes, yes, this is absolutely appearing. We need to be very careful because the old men are, watching us, and it's like, it sort of has this whole sort of conspiracy thriller thing that Gendo's sort of doing, so like in the background of like Gendo is obviously up to something, and then we get to the moon.
Yes,
and Karu's on the moon.
Showing that like the angels aren't standing still either.
No, it's like there's a boy on the moon. Why is there a boy on the moon? Why is he breathing in space? What does this mean? And it's sort of like that scene. I feel goes. This isn't okay. Up to now, you have been watching this and going, this is literally, and this is the moment where Gano goes, nope. This isn't what you think it is. This is far more than what you think it is. And obviously there's like the sea is red and there's like a chalk outline, and it's like Anno sort of does drip 3D. There is something more going on beyond below the surface that is slowly going to transform this into something new. But that's really sort of something for next episode, I think.
Okay, somehow we got 50 minutes out of this, so
we somehow got 50 minutes.
We probably better go.
We will go. We will see you next time, where we once again talk about the best anime character ever created. See you later.
Later.